What's up, everyone? We're going to get Rod on here from 4FitFatherhood, and we're going to have a great discussion on fatherhood. I didn't know he was in California. Normally, we worked that out, the logistics earlier, and this time I didn't. Let's see. I think Rod's on here now. Hey, what's up, Rod?
How you doing, brother?
Man, I can't complain. Life's good. We're about
It
to go to a
is.
concert here in a couple hours, and we've had 2 date nights since our son's been born. One in Atlanta, and now we're gonna get one here in Tampa. We have friends driving 3 hours just to watch our son tonight, just so we can hit a concert.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Who you guys going to see?
A niece. He's
Niece.
he's brand new. My wife likes him. I'm not the biggest fan. I mean, like, he's good. Don't get me wrong. I
Yeah.
just like he's like that. If you're chill and you want to listen to chill music, he's kind of chill, but he's also like not chill. It's like it doesn't hit a lot. It's
Got
I'm not
it.
gonna listen to him working out, and when I'm chilled,
Got it.
so how's everything over there?
Yeah. Good, man. Good. My kid's out of school, so and my wife had a hair appointment, so it's me and the girls all day today, or at least for most of the day. So we're chilling, and then this evening they have their third night of their performance. They're in a play. Actually, they're in a Little Mermaid. So they had the third night of their performance tonight. So I'm gonna take them to that, and then try to find something to do with my time.
Yeah, that's nice. Anytime with the kids is the
Yeah,
best, right?
yeah, yeah.
So,
Having a good time, man, and enjoying it.
what I know and I love about your page is that you are super intentional with your kids. You are present. You are all about just loving that fatherhood, and
Yeah,
that was something that made me reach out to you. I just love that how you are so dedicated to being a father. Can you tell us a little bit about how life changed?
yeah. Hopefully, long story short, but it usually ends up being long story long.
right?
2011, I was strength and conditioning coach for the New York Mets. And I had just won Strength Coach of the Year, so I was on a good path. I was 27 in Major League Baseball, which was like, not unheard of, but it was a fast track in terms of my career. And finished up the season. My wife and I, or finished up the short season, was supposed to go back to the Dominican League for the fall and then come back for spring training. But we found she was pregnant. And I always say this is like my Matrix moment. I just, everything slowed down. And when she said, "You're going to be a father," like, it just hit me like as hard as you could possibly be hit. And I knew in that moment that I had actually found my purpose. Like, I had been pursuing a career and pursuing these titles and these ideas of what I was supposed to be. But when she said, "You're going to be a father," I knew immediately that that was my purpose. And so I spent some time, kind of negotiating that with her, because I was, I was like, "Yeah, I'm done. I'm quitting. I'm gonna call my coordinator tomorrow, and I'm gonna let him know I'm not coming back." And she's like, "Wait a minute. I said you're having a kid. You can't not have a job." And I was like, "Hey, look, I can't imagine doctor's visits. I can't imagine being on the field somewhere, and it was Skype back then. They couldn't even like FaceTime me. Just Skype call me and say, "Hey, your kid's been born." I was like, I can't do it. I'm not going to be able to do it. To spend 6 to 8 months away from home and then get to see my kid for a couple months before I head back out. So I talked to my coordinator, who actually was one of my fatherhood mentors early, because he had four kids, and he told me, he obviously career-wise, he tried to talk me into it. He tried to offer me some incentives to stay. And then at our last conversation about it, he was like, "Look, man, I missed. I think it was his second daughter, because he played in the big leagues. He missed his second daughter's birth, and he was like, it's one of those things that I regret, and there's not much that I regret." So he was like, "I understand, man. Go back, and if you decide you ever want to come back," he left the door open for me, and I never went back. But I immediately in that moment, I found my purpose, and I was reintroduced to it a couple years later with my second daughter. And then, just like everybody else, I kind of got caught up in providing, right, and pursuing provision for my family. And it wasn't until the pandemic and everything kind of got shut down that I realized that I wasn't pursuing my core purpose. Again, another career I'm with a bunch of athletes and a bunch of coaches and all these people, and I'm helping them pursue their passions and seeing people make it to the highest level in their sport. And it wasn't until, like I said, the pandemic, that I realized that as intentional as I was about the time that I spent with my family, it just wasn't a lot of it. I was working 10 to 12-hour days, getting to see them maybe in the morning when they wake up, pick them up from school, and then, the next day. And when the gyms got shut down here in California, that first week, I remember my youngest daughter, we're having dinner. It still bothers me to this day. We're having dinner, and I think it was like a Tuesday or Thursday night, one of the days I'm never home, and she's like, "What are you doing here?" Like, I didn't belong in my own house, and that crushed me. So I was like, I talked to the owner of our company. I let him know that I gave up, "You got 3 months. I'm going to hire whoever I need to hire, build up whatever I need to build up. I helped build this business. I don't want to just leave you hanging in the lurch, but I got to go pursue my purpose. I got to get back into what is, like I said, my core purpose." And I've been doing it ever since. I trusted and believed in myself and trusted God, and stepped out on my own. And here we are.
Dude, that is powerful. I can't believe you walked away from the big leagues. That's unbelievable. I mean, I have a similar story, but I was definitely not in the big leagues. And I was telling someone the other day that I was in the military, and I had probably about a total of about 600 soldiers under me. And during my tenure of 3 years, there's about 24 kids born, or 21, I think it was. 21 kids. I never went to the hospital. I gave them all the time they wanted. I knew kids were important. This is how detached I was. And I would say, "Hey, go home, be with your kids, whatever." But we deployed 4 times in 3 years. So it was ridiculous. We were always gone. And that just kills the family vibe too. And
Right.
my son was born. So my wife got pregnant in Hawaii. We had him in Washington right before COVID, literally a week before COVID hit, because people were still coming in and bringing food and alcohol and all this stuff to me. And the next week, my buddy had one. I couldn't even come into the hospital because it was all crazy, right? And everything changed. Right when that kid was born, I just was in tears. I was like, I don't want to be in the military. They sent me away for about 3 months, and it was only from like 4 months old to 7 months old. But I'll tell you what, I felt like anxious the whole time. My heart hurt. It was just like, I'm not there with this kid's development. It was so tough on me, and my wife knew it was. And it was her first time really handling the baby all by herself, nonstop, right? So she was getting worn down, and that was it. I was like, I'm done. I don't want to be in the military. And at that time, I already had 11 years in, or 12 years in. And when COVID happened, I was offered early retirement due to vaccination status. I took that early retirement. I saw the writing on the wall. It was go 7 more years and have a full retirement, or take this early retirement and be with my family, start something that I love. And it did take me. I knew that was my purpose, but I didn't know how to make like, I didn't know how to make that like a career, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I saw fathers that were asking me, like, how do I father? Because I was a stay-at-home dad all of a sudden. I got out of the military. I'm getting full retirement. Not a big deal to me. So we always have like income coming. But fathers at the playground would just start asking me, hey, what are you doing different? Why is your son like this? Because my son speaks 2 languages. We moved to Costa Rica. My wife's just brilliant. I married up big time. She's listening. Married up. But so it was just a mind check, and it was just I had to do some deep work, and I felt like I don't know a better purpose in life, because before my purpose was soldiers, it's taking care of soldiers, being a leader. And I would always tell people, I'm like, no, my calling's leadership. Leadership's my calling, because I was in the military so long, I had so many soldiers under me, and that was not it. Leadership in the family, leadership's with my son, you know, and that's what got me writing that book, Fatherhood, The Art of Love and Leadership, because those are 2 critical aspects, love and leadership. And I feel like a lot of men weren't talking about the love side, right? They're like, oh, leadership. I have to go earn the bread for the house. I need to put a roof over the kid's head. I'm like, but what about the time? What about your time? The most important value that is there is your time with that kid, you know? And I feel like that's attached to so many. I started talking to fathers, it's just like putting a roof over their head, and their kids would be like 2, 3 years old, like my son, and they'd be like, oh, I need to get ready for college so I can pay his college. What are you talking about? You have 18 years before that kid goes to college. You need to be spending time with them. Yeah, so it was a tough one too.
Well, let me go back to the beginning of what you just said. First, 600 soldiers is more important than 27 guys swinging sticks at balls and playing a kids game. So let me just say that. Right? It was definitely easier for me to step away from guys playing a kids game and doing baseball for 8 hours a day. But I agree with you, man. Kind of the same situation, just this whole social media thing, the podcast, all that stuff kind of birthed from me not seeing it happening, right? And not having it happen in my own family. Like, there was nobody for me to talk to, or I mean, I guess there was, but connection to talk to about fatherhood, right? So I just started asking questions. Like I said, my fatherhood mentors, like, I'm asking him questions about fatherhood and what do you do and what to expect and all that. Because I read some of the baby books and some of them I skimmed, but most of it's like the 9 months while they're pregnant, and then afterwards it's like, hey, every kid's going to be different, so you just go do whatever. And I'm like, there's got to be at least a blueprint to follow, right? Because I'm a big, like, being in strength conditioning, sets and reps programming, everything is kind of like meticulously laid out, and obviously within that there's some wiggle room, but like, I need a list to some degree. Like, I need to know, okay, this is what I'm going to be looking for, these are my adjustments, this is how I cue, these are some things I can change. And I wasn't getting that in a real sense. So that's why I started talking to guys and asking questions. And then I'm like, man, these dudes are sharing really good stuff. I should probably start recording it, or at least ask guys, hey, man, would you mind if I wrote some of this down? And that's kind of what birthed all of this, because I just, guys, we don't share enough of the good stuff before it happens. You know what I mean? We're really after the fact, like, oh, man, I could have told you that. Well, why didn't you? Why didn't you tell me that, bro? Like, why do you want me to suffer? You could have gave me a heads up, And I'm seeing guys like you, and I'm talking to guys that are in this fatherhood space. There's a lot of really good information out there, but I think, we don't have a good enough sifter. We don't have a good enough filter to find the good information, because it's just wrapped up in so much other stuff that I'm trying to cut through and give a real clear line of how we can help each other as men, as fathers, and as leaders. And I think you're 100% right on. We're missing the love part of it, because that's the human connection part of it. Because 9 times out of 10, when I ask a guy what does it mean to be a man, or what does it mean to be a father, one of the first things he says is provide, right? Provide and protect are usually number 1 and number 2, right? At no point in the top 3 do they say love, nourish, nurture, care for. It doesn't even come up till we get to like 7, where they can't think of anything else, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to love them too. And I think as a leader, you have to have some type of love, some type of empathy, some type of something care for the people that you're leading because it endears them to you. If you're just barking orders or giving commands, yeah, I'm gonna follow you because I have to. But as soon as I get a chance to buck the system, yo, I'm out, and you won't see me again. And as fathers, I don't think we want that, right?
Yeah. No, I definitely, I agree 100%. Sorry, I'm on a military base right now, so they just decided as we started to start doing their flyovers. It's an Air Force base, so they have these big old C-17s just literally going right over my head. It's ridiculous.
It's perfect,
Anyway,
perfect ambiance.
right? So, going back to the love part, yeah, the compassion is just not there. A lot of fathers really do. Like, you covered it perfectly. I mean, they just want to provide and protect, and it's like, what else? That's not it. That can't be all. And for me, I grew up with no father, so I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, in a real shitty neighborhood, and it was tough. It was tough growing up. You look at someone wrong, you're fighting. You know, it's just like, what kind of why is that even happening? It was ridiculous to grow up. And it's funny, my wife's from Chicago, but she's from like the nice area of Chicago in this beautiful suburb. So when we go to each other's places, I'm like, she's like, I can't believe you grew up here. I'm like, it's horrible. But I think there's something about all of us men who are preaching that being present and intentional fathers. It's like we're making up for something we didn't have sometimes, or we just did some critical thinking. Hey, it can't be just this way. It can't be just this one way that everyone's saying, like, provide and protect, and then the discipline is hitting them. Like, where did that come from? I still talked to him, and he's like, Jack, I swear hitting my daughter was the best thing. I'm like, what? This is absolutely asinine. That can't be the best thing. You made her fearful of you. He's like, no, build the relationship, and she understood boundaries. And then I'm like, as a man, if you're not improving and killing off old editions of you, right? So each time we're up leveling, you need to learn some new tactics. And it's like, when does emotional intelligence come in? when are men going to learn that we need to teach emotional intelligence also, and not just moms? And I actually wrote a chapter on emotional intelligence, but two of my chapters were starting off with like building a relationship with your kid intentionally, and at the end it was a bonus chapter of building a relationship with your wife or your partner intentionally. And so it was so some of these guys still just believe that old way is perfect and it shouldn't change, and you still hear it out there all the time, you know. And how do we get them to change? You think it's just putting out our message all the time, or just one at a time, helping others improve?
I think it's a combination of both, right? Like you like even with like illnesses, right? They infect one cell at a time, and then it spreads, and that cell infects the cell, and it kind of spreads out over time. And sometimes like you can get a bunch of people at the same time, right? But I think you just continue to do the work. You continue to pour out because that's a part of your purpose and who you are, and you continue to share. I say this all the time. Is like one of the reasons now, even more so, that I'm really hard on this fatherhood thing is because my kids are growing up, and as they get older, they start to experience the world more. They're outside of my house more than they used to be. Like and if I don't help other fathers be better men and better fathers, well, then my kids are going to go hang out with their kids, right? And if you're not doing your job as a dad, it sucks. Now my kid has to go interact with your sucky kid, and that, you know what I mean? So that's why, like, it's up to us to start in our household, building the family and the people and the environment that we want for our children. But then also we have to take it a step outside of that and kind of start to work on infecting our communities, infecting our cities and states, and you know, we expand as we go out. But I wanted to go back to what you're saying about like killing off old versions of yourself. I like to say, like, if you think about your phone or even the apps on your phone, right? There's always updates. Your phone is constantly updating, right? When it updates, it doesn't keep the old version of itself. Like, you don't have like I'm an Android guy, right? So I got a 22 plus, and I just got my father-in-law just got a new phone. He's got a 23, And I looked at his phone, looked at my phone, I'm like, damn, now I got to upgrade, because there's a new version. And I think a lot of times we don't look at ourselves like that. Like we will hold on to the old iPhone, like the original iPhone. Like we got this old outdated version of ourselves that this is who I am and this is but like, bro, times are changing. You're changing. Your family is changing. That's one thing that I think is really important. How can you not grow when you become a father to an infant, but now you're a father to a toddler or a father to a preteen like, how are you growing with them? How are you still the same father at 13 that you were at 3? That it just doesn't make sense, right? So if you're not, like you mentioned earlier, doing the deep work on yourself, not improving yourself and trying to make yourself better, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, dude, I'm stealing that analogy. That was absolutely the best analogy ever. That's definitely. I'll give you credit though when I use it. I'll be like, Ron, I think this from Ron.
No, go for it.
But
Put it out there, man. Share it.
A lot I hear like, oh, I'm not into that woo-woo stuff. I'm like, you don't have to be into the woo-woo stuff. You don't need to do meditation. You don't need to do ice baths. You don't need it. But what are you doing to challenge yourself? You need to get comfortable being uncomfortable, because that's what having kids is. Like, a lot of times I'm uncomfortable, but especially when I became a stay-at-home dad, and I'm like taking him to the library, the playgrounds, and I'm the only dad there, and it's all moms. The moms are kind of like looking at me like, I don't want to talk to him. I'm like, hey, how's it going? This is my son. And it's men are afraid to get uncomfortable. I don't know what happened in the world that they got a little bit soft, and then they get into that routine, and it's just so hard to break a routine. I saw it with soldiers all the time. I was in Germany 5 years and in Hawaii 3 years, and I saw soldiers in Germany not leave the base. They got so comfortable just working, playing video games, going to the gym, and they never experienced Germany or Europe. I was like, what are you doing? Hawaii is that? How are you in Hawaii when everything's free? It's like the beach is free, all this stuff's free. Don't get me wrong, you go to restaurants, it's expensive. I get it, but these kids would stay on base. I'm like, what? All because their comfort zone, they didn't want to break.
Get out of here, kid.
Yeah. And as my son changes, it's like, man, he's changing me every single time. When he was born, I look at a picture of him when he was born, and I'm just bawling. I couldn't hold it back. I was just crying so hard. And my mother-in-law got the best picture ever of me, and I'm so happy I have that. Because I look back, and it still like brings tears. I'm like, it was like the most powerful thing that I've ever witnessed. And I'm like up there holding my wife's leg, and it was just like a wild rodeo, and it was amazing. We just brought this kid. We made this kid, and right then and there, I knew I was not the same person. I was already a changing man, and yeah, now it's become my passion. It's just become like, and maybe this is why like all my clients become all military. It's because it's like maybe I'm making up for that time when all those kids were born and I wasn't able to understand what they were going through. And now all these military guys, they love my leadership style, but now they're seeing that I took that leadership style and I refocused it on fatherhood, similar to kind of what you did. And so it's just, when you start doing that, it's opening up different ways even. Like, I'm talking to you, I'm already learning new things. And when you talk to, your vibe attracts your tribe, right? And it's like what you were saying yesterday or day before about your circle needs to change. It's you need to upgrade it. I'm not hanging out with the guys in Cleveland anymore. Don't get me wrong, those are my best friends from 30 years now,
right?
Maybe even longer. And it's just, I'm not living in Cleveland. I'm not going back there and just hanging out doing the exact same thing I did when I was 20 years old. That's ridiculous. And sometimes they expect me to do that. My own sisters expect me to do that. They don't know about the upgrades, and they're all on iPhone 1 over there in Cleveland. I don't know what's going on in that water, but yeah. When I saw you post that, I was just like, yeah, that hit home. I was just like, man, my circles changed almost every year. Not that I wanted to. I want intentional guys in my life that are motivating me, and it's like that's why I reached out to you and some other guys that you may have seen me talk to, and it's just like, you guys are the ones that are motivating people, and this is what I want my group to be. I don't want it to be the guys who are drinking beer every single day, eating crap every day. I mean, that's a huge thing in itself, is like, what kind of food are we feeding our kids? Like, people aren't even looking at half the things that we're giving our children. because half the stuff in America is just trash.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Unfortunately. Yeah. Yeah.
I,
Yeah, man. I think what I was saying about the upgrades and like your circle, staying with that phone analogy, like if you got an iPhone now, like it's hard. First of all, it's hard to find a regular USB like plug. There's like a C plug now, right? Like everybody is upgraded. So Cleveland is an old USB plug. You'll get in there every once in a while, and you get charged up with your boys. Like, because I had the same thing. Like my neighborhood where I came from is treacherous, right? And so I go back in dose, right? But I can still fit in there, but that's not where I get recharged anymore, right? I get recharged in my neighborhood with the inner circle that I have now. That's what's building up my current hardware, right? With new
yeah.
software, I got to have new hardware. I can't keep going back to the same stuff. I can still, like I said, I don't cut anybody off, right? Well, let me take that back. There's some people I have cut off just for reasons that are necessary, right? But like my friends are still my friends. We just don't hang out like we used to hang out because we don't have the same things in common, right? Like I'm pursuing a different path, and it would be me dragging them along down that path, and they don't want to go. They'd be kicking and screaming. So like, okay, you just do your path. I'm gonna do my path, and if we cross at some point, it's high fives and handshakes and what's ups and all that, and we're gonna be cool like we just saw each other the other day. But just understand that once we finish that interaction, I got to go back to my path. I love you, but I love me and I love my family too, and so I'm gonna have to love you from a
Yeah.
distance, and that's okay,
No,
right? Because
I love.
people will pigeonhole you. They'll put you in a place and they keep you there because it's comfortable for them, right? Because you doing anything outside of that is like he's changed or he's acting different or he's funny, but nah, I'm growing. That's what we're supposed to do, right? Like I'm supposed to be growing. I'm supposed to be getting better. And if I'm not, then I'm going backwards.
Yeah. You know what's funny is my wife and I are both the younger kids in our households, right? And it's like as the baby child or whatever, people hold this version, just like you're saying, they'll hold that version of the baby who you were, or the 20-year-old you were, because you were still making all kinds of mistakes. Especially me, I was making the worst mistakes you could possibly make. And everyone after the military is just like, oh, come back to Cleveland, come back, just you could get a job here. I'm like, I'm not going back to 9 to 5. You guys got me messed up. There's no 9 to 5, and I'll come and say hi, but it's in small doses. Even my wife gets a little anxious. She's just like, we're going back to Cleveland? Oh, crap. You ain't going to get stupid now, are you? I'm like, I'm way too old for that. And my
Yeah.
wife's young. She's 29. I'm 41. So, it's like I don't have it in me to even do that anymore. But I do love them. I'm staying actually at one of my best friend's houses who I grew up with. 35 years we've known each other, and we're going to stay there. He smokes cigarettes. None of us do that, but he smokes outside, and he does what he has to do. And he's just like, I know you guys are crazy and wild, but you can stay here forever. we accept the versions of each other who they are, and that's why we're staying with him. He understands that, like, we have our path, our journey, and we're living that.
And that's a good person. That's a good person to have, just because there are going to be, like I said, you redraw your circle, right? And so the circle gets smaller, but there's still like the outer rings, and there's still people that are still in your orbit, right? They still kind of flow with the things that make sense, and they just want to see what's best for you. But then there's people that, like, a few weeks ago, I had a podcast episode where I talked about people come into your life for 4 different reasons. We talk about like the mathematics of fatherhood. People add to your life, they subtract to your life, they multiply you, or they divide things that you have going on. And you have to be able to determine who that person is. Like, if that person's in your atmosphere and they're a subtractor, like they're taking away from what you're trying to build, you might have to, like, you know what I mean? You might have to put a little bit more distance on that person, or somebody that's going to divide you, right? Like I have some friends that were, just single dudes, right? I'm 40, bro. Single at 40 is a rough life, right? I mean, I got some single homeboys and they're like, hey man, why don't you come hang out with us? And I'm like, for what? Like, I'm not going to first of all, I don't go to the club with my wife. Like, I don't like to go to the club at all. I did enough clubbing in my 20s. I've clubbed out. I'm not going to the club with you. Yeah, but you don't have to do nothing, man. Like, you just be the wingman. But the wingman, are you crazy? No, see, you're trying to divide my situation. So you know what I mean? I got to put you further away, right? You're a divider. And so you have to determine who those people are in your life. And somebody, like you mentioned, who is understanding of where you are on your path, they still want to take you in, they're accepting you for who you are. That's somebody that's adding to you because they're coming from a place where you connect to, but they're also pushing you to a place where you want to go. And he's cool
Yeah,
with it. He's like, yo, you're still my man. Go do your thing. Like, I'm still gonna smoke these cigarettes though, bro. You know what I mean? I'm still gonna do my thing, but you go do your thing, and I'm happy for you. Like,
yeah,
that's great. That's a great person to have because he's a foundational piece, right? And I think as we move on, as we grow as men and fathers, we have to find those different types of people in our life to kind of support or push or pull or whatever it is. But we have to have some discernment about who we have in our circle, who we have around us, who we interact with on social media, who we interact with just on a day-to-day basis, because if you're not careful, right, it doesn't take much, right? Unless you're like super, super, super excelling, right? Most of us aren't there yet, right? It's just a nature of the numbers. Most of us aren't at the very top. Most of us are somewhere in the middle, which means we can slip up today and be wifeless and the battle tomorrow, you know.
yeah.
And so we have to continue to move the needle forward and do things that are going to support our actual ambitions and goals. And for me, I want to be the best man I can be on a daily basis, not even comparing to yesterday, but just today. I want to do the best that I can today because I know if I'm the best man I can be, it's really hard to be a good man and a bad father at the same time, right? The values don't line up, you know.
Yeah.
Be a good man and a terrible dad. They don't really work together like that. So I know that if I continue to push myself to be a better man, I can always be a better father, better husband, better boss, better employee, whatever the title is, right? Like if my foundation is good man, then whatever title I put on that just elevates.
What we doing in my house, I love that what you said, because I agree with this, and this is what I'm gonna wrap in here is, in my house every day it's like, at the end of the day, did we win the day? How did we win the day? And we'll talk about that. So it's kind of, in the military it's called an AAR, after action review. So you kind of like review your day, right? And we'll be like, well, I hit the gym, I woke up, I felt great, I ate healthy food all day. I've been intermittent fasting for like 13 years, so did I fast properly? Did I do it right? Did I drink 3 liters of water? Like all these little things in my household add up to our win, right? Did my son get outside? Was he outside playing for 2-3 hours today? Did he get to play with kids? Or did he get to learn something? And then we'll say, we got to win today. All right, we got W. And our whole goal is to get 5-7 days W. And that way, our month, we know at the end of the month, we got to win for the month. So literally, we bring it down to like the smallest thing you can each day. So just like you're saying, is like every day I'm starting new, right? That guy's gone today. I have to conquer today and win today. And that's kind of like the way we look at it in my house. Simple. It's very simple. I've heard it before from other people that do the same thing, and it's just something that's been with me for years now. Let's win today, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really, really, really important for the guys that are listening, the guys who hear that is like that after action support is huge, right? Because you have to have some awareness of what's going on in your day if you want to make change, right? If you want things to happen, right? Like
Yep.
in fitness, right? If you're not measuring, right? If you're not measuring something, right? Like if we're talking about strength and conditioning, if I'm not keeping track of what I'm squatting, I just go into the gym and I squat, then how do I know if I'm making progress? Like how do I track my progress? How do I make myself progress? Like I'm just in there, I'm just doing whatever. Like I woke up today and I'm just gonna do whatever, and then I'll come back tomorrow and I'll do whatever. Like sure, you're being consistent and that's a part of it, but if you're not intensely consistent, then anything can happen, right? Just showing up, like if you aren't showing up, right, as a father, if your initial goal is just to start showing up and being present, right? If that's the goal, then showing up is enough. But then once you overcome that obstacle and you're showing up and you're present, now you need to be very intentional about what happens next. Because just showing up or just being in the room isn't the same as being active in the room, right? It's not the
Yeah.
same as making sure, like you say, you have like that checklist of things is that present is the overarching thing, right? But then, okay, when I'm present, is my son going outside? Is he eating the right things? Am I getting my workout in? Am I showing him, like, through my actions, the type of person that I want him to be? Am I talking to him about the type of person that I want? Like, there's all these other parts that go into it. And I think we get to, oh man, I'm not present. Let me be present. And then we settle, right? And we're like, okay, I'm here. I was there every day. I went to the games. I did those things. But then there's so many other layers to it. And I think we're not raising children, we're raising adults, right? Because at the end of it, that's who they're going to be. They're going to be an adult. And so if we aren't treating them or teaching them time appropriately, the things that they need to know in order to be a successful and productive adult, then we're kind of leaving them in the dark, right? Because at some point they're going to be old enough to go out into this world and do the things that we do. But if we never are, like, actively explaining or actively showing, teaching, guiding, then when they get there, all their load is, I think this is what my dad was doing, right? I think this is what it is. And I think that's kind of what my dad did. And now he's a lot more active now in terms of, like, talking, having conversations like that. But he's a stoic dude, doesn't show emotion, doesn't do any of that stuff. And so I never had those conversations until now I'm older and I'm forcing him to have the conversations. But it was just like, you just do what I do, right? This is what I do. This is what you're going to do, right? Like, do it the way I'm doing it. And I didn't understand it until now.
I do, man. You're hitting it hard right now. You're hitting it hard. So like I said, I didn't grow up with a father. I had a stepfather, and last year I wrote him a letter. I said, "Hey, my son has no grandfather, because my dad's dead also. So my dad's dead, her dad's dead, and I have a stepdad that I grew up with, who I was close with till my mom died when I was 22. And I wrote him a letter last year talking about my feelings. Hey, the one father that I had, and I wish you were there for my son as a grandfather." And I reached out. The same thing is, like you just said, he's very stoic and no emotion. He's super intelligent, but that's the main thing when it comes to, love. And he didn't reply. I saw him in April in Cleveland, nothing about it. And then my sisters were like, "Well, you just need to reach out to him." I'm like, I literally wrote the guy a 3-page letter with my emotions, trying to start the conversation. It's just ridiculous that, those old timers just don't do it. And then I watched my wife. Her mom is a little bit older. She's 70, so she had her older grandma. Her mom lived with us. She got stuck with us for COVID in Washington. We were over by Seattle area then. And Simone, my wife, she just is great at getting people to speak their emotions. She's the first woman to really get me out there and speak my emotions. And I've watched her do it with her mom. And I've watched her mom, like, upgrade in her 60s. I'm like, what is going on? And it's just amazing to watch the old timers still changing and still upgrading. It's just like, why can't I have that in my family? Like, why can't some old dads be that way, So it's great to hear that at least your dad's now speaking, and you could be like,
Yeah.
me, and it's just a dead end, And then digressing really quick about the reflecting. I think lots of men just, they don't have any self-reflection at all. It's like, do you ever look in the mirror? I said this to my son. He goes, "I don't think anyone's evil in the world." I said, that's a weird statement to make. And this is when I was in the military. I'm like, you think there's no one evil, but we're in the military going to war and stuff. I'd say that's probably, you should change your perspective here. I go, do you look in the mirror and talk to yourself ever? He's like, "Jack, what are you talking about?" I'm like, "Dude, I'll get out of the shower butt naked and I'll look in the mirror and I'll talk to myself." He's like, "Oh, that's too much information." He was already getting uncomfortable because I said I was naked. I do that on purpose. I do that on purpose to see how people's reactions are, right? Because a lot of men are uncomfortable in their own. If you're uncomfortable in your own body, well, we already have a whole situation that we need to start with to get you physically feeling better, and then upgrade from there. But like, man, the self-reflection was gone. And lots of soldiers I talked to, I said, "Man, do you sit and write things down? Like, hey, how do you feel? Write your stuff down." I'm not a big journal person, but I tell you what, every time I journal, I do feel better. It's just taking those first steps of reflecting. Where's your life at? How'd you get here? Where do you want to be? Let's do some visualizations.
Yeah, that's a big thing, and it's actually something that I'm going to be working towards in the next few weeks is putting something together for fathers and men. So emotional intelligence, and one of the components of emotional awareness, and I think just as men, right, we no one teaches us emotional intelligence, and I say this all the time. For a large portion of my life, I had two, maybe three emotions, right? I was happy or I was angry. And maybe sometimes I was afraid, but if I was afraid, it made me angry, right? And so I had two ways to be. And so, my wife is a therapist, and and this is actually pretty recently, she showed me like this emotional intelligence wheel. And it's like a diagram, and it's like just your core emotions, and I think it's like seven of them, and there's like 100 emotions around it. I'm like, first of all, there's no way everybody feels. You can't feel all those things. But as I dive more into it, I'm like, okay, there's just different levels of these emotions, but they're real. And I think as men, we're only allowed to be two things in society, and as much as we claim to be all powerful and like I'm powerful men and all that, but we just don't have the tools to feel our emotions, to understand our emotions, to be emotionally aware, emotionally disciplined, to have self-regulation. And unless we learn those things, it's going to be really hard for us as leaders of a family of people, not employees, right? Not people who have to come to us, but of real living, breathing people that we care about. It's going to be hard for us to lead them in a way that's good for them if we aren't understanding of our own emotions, right? Of our own feelings. If we don't have empathy, if we don't have social awareness, if we don't have some of those key components to emotional intelligence, it's hard to be a really solid leader, right? And not like, again, not a boss, not somebody who's dictating, but a leader where people are wanting to follow you, where your goals and their goals align. I like to say that parenting is a collaboration, right? Because I want my kids to be the best possible people they can be, and I think they want to be the best possible people they can be, and so we're working together to make that happen. I'm not like I am, right? Because as an authority figure, I have to dictate some things, and I have to tell them to do something because they don't know any better because they're kids. But we are working in concert together, right? Like it's more harmony than it is us, right? We got to have a harmony between the two of us or the four of us, and making sure that they become the best people and the best family and then the best individuals they could be.
Yeah, I'm absolutely 100% with that. I wrote a whole chapter on emotional intelligence because I think it's so important, and how men need to be regulating the nervous system. And that's what it comes down to for me. It's like, and I forgot the term my wife says. It's like verbal intelligence. I know you're on here, Simone. Type it in what it is. Verbal intelligence. It's like giving, or emotional intelligence. No, I forgot what it is. But it's giving kids the ability to express their emotions properly, so they have the right language. I forgot the proper term, what that is. So that I put that in the book, but that was like my wife actually guiding me with that part. And
Yeah.
because I agree with her. I never had that ability, and I still want. There it is. Just put it in there. Emotional literacy. So
Okay.
we have a chapter on that, and it's like I'm still working on that, but I can accept that I'm working on that because I also know how to regulate my nervous system, and I know emotional intelligence. I just don't have the proper language still. So like my wife gets a little bit frustrated with me because she'll say, "How you feeling?" And I'm like, "Good."
Yeah.
Right? Then good. I'm good. Good. Everything's good. And that's it. I don't go any deeper than that, right? There's no depth to me. And it's like teaching my son emotional literacy. It's like you're seeing his depth, and you're seeing what he's saying already. At 3 years old, the kid's like, "Dad, I need space. Don't come by me." I'm like, "What? You're 3 years old. How do you know you need space?" But it's like we don't treat our son like a baby. We use big words by him. We teach him the proper things, and we're just like you said, we're setting him up to be an adult that can handle his own life, that he has confidence and resilience, and very adaptable, right? Wherever situation he's in, and that's how we see it, And emotional intelligence it might be one of the top levels that they need to know. Every relationship is going to have some kind of quarrel or anything like that within it, and so if you don't know how to regulate your own system, I mean, this is how we got in the situation we are, where parents think it's okay to hit their kids, hit dogs. It's like it's allowed to hit things that can't speak back. You're like,
Yeah.
kids and dogs, what?
Yeah.
Because you can't regulate your nervous system and just take a deep breath, step back, and then reevaluate the situation properly. It's unbelievable to me.
It's tough for people too, because that's, if that's your patterning, if that's your programming, if that's what you grew up in, then it's hard to, one, if you're not self-aware, it's hard to step out of that and go, hey, maybe this doesn't work. Even if you as a child did not enjoy getting whoopings, like you didn't enjoy getting hit, like none of us did. I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't one of my favorite things. It wasn't. When I got in trouble, I got in trouble. It wasn't because I was looking to get in trouble. I wasn't trying to get a whooping. It was the aftermath of doing what I did. But I think, like, we know that, or not, some of us know that, and we still will be like, yeah, I'm beating my kid. I can't, like, why? Why are we doing that? Like, it didn't work for you. You were still doing stuff. Like, you still got in trouble. For people to be like, I'm gonna discipline my child with an iron fist, or spare the rod, spoil the child. Like, I get it. I understand it's a biblical reference, but if you think about it, if you actually look at what shepherds do, they don't beat the sheep right away. Like, that's a last resort. Like, if I'm saving the sheep's life, then I'm gonna use the rod to save the sheep. Like, not like right away, right? I'm using the rod more often to guide the sheep away, to point the sheep in a direction, to deter them from eating something they shouldn't eat. I'm not just beating them, right? But we use that and we'll go, yeah, well, look at me. I'm not in jail. My mom beat me. I'm like, yeah, but you didn't have a good time. You guys got a tattered relationship now. Like, okay, I guess you could use that as an example. But if you know better, you should do better, right? And if there's a better way for you to handle it, then why not? Why not even try to explore the idea of handling it a different way, right? And then, like, commit to it for a little while. See what happens, right? See if that relationship grows. And if it doesn't, and your kid just walks all over you for whatever reason, it's probably not because you're not beating them. It's probably because your relationship sucks with them.
Yeah.
Just being honest, right? Like, and that's a hard pill to swallow, but they're not being disrespectful to you because you're not whooping them. They're being disrespectful for you because you're not showing them a level of respect. And which, again,
100%.
goes back to you looking at you. What is it
Yeah.
that you need to do to get better? Because ultimately, you can't control anybody else, not even your kids, right? They're making decisions that are outside of your control. What you can control is who you are and what you do, and the things that you are responsible for. And people are drawn to you. Like, my kids aren't disrespectful to me because I'm smacking them around. Like, they're not disrespectful to me because they and who I am and how I love them and how I care for them. And they look at that and they go, man, my dad really loves me. It would suck for me to disappoint him, or it would suck for me to do something to make him mad. So I'm going to try to make sure that I do the right things. It's not because I threaten in their lives, right? Like, I don't have to. I hope. I haven't got to that point yet. I hope I don't have to, like, threaten to beat somebody up in here, but it's just I think if you can go about it a different way, then why not at least give it a shot? Why not at least give it a chance? I don't think that, even as adults, right? We don't want people to beat us up because we did something wrong. Like, people are up in arms about police brutality and things like that, but then we beating up kids. So we're showing them the way to discipline is to get hit, and then when they get adults, people can't hit you no more. Like, what are you saying? Like, what's your, like, where is the disconnect? Like, make it make sense for somebody.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely makes no sense. And I think that's why we're in this situation, because we're like, nah, we think they change, right? And what you're saying is people make a little change, but then they're not consistent. Then they lose the consistency part. It's just like, man, what are you doing? Just stay consistent. Show up every day. Kind of like you were saying earlier. It's like, hey, if your first part is just to show up, well, let's be consistent there. Let's show up. Let's be present. And then going back to what you're saying about relationships, my biggest chapter was that the first one I told you is building a relationship with your kid intentionally. And it's my biggest chapter because I agree with you. It's so many fathers don't have a relationship with their kids. They go, I love my kid. Yeah, I love my kid. He does this, this, and this. Or she does this, this, and this. All right, well, how often are you hugging your kid? Do you guys have, like, something that's just yours? Do you go on solo trips with your kid? Do you take the time to, like, talk with your kid? And then every time I ask these questions, and don't get me wrong, people are like, "Oh, your kid's only 3 years old, Jack. You don't know it." At 3, I did the same thing. Did you? Because a relationship with your 14-year-old is gone. And it's funny because my wife and I were talking about this recently. It's like, I can never imagine my son and I not having a close relationship. Like, it would break my heart. It would literally crush my soul. I would literally, like, I would die. A part of me would. And how do people get to that point? It's through all of this. No, they're not taking actions. They're not being consistent. They're not reflecting. I mean, if you got in a fight with your daughters, wouldn't you apologize? That's what I would do. I don't even care. My son's that important. Like, if we get in a fight, all right, dude, I'm sorry. Let's work this out. Let's talk through this. But I know, like, I'm giving him the tools now that when he's older and we may have these arguments, that we'll sit down and talk like men. And men's and me sit and talk like how you and I are. We're going to talk through it. We're going to be regulated.
Right.
We're not going to yell at each other. And don't get me wrong, when I met my wife, I was not regulated. And it's like, I look back at that person of just 5-6 years ago. I'm like, who's that guy? That guy was unregulated, would yell, would walk away from conversations, thinking that was, oh, this is just how I do it. This is how I do it. That's not being a man. That's just disappearing and, letting down other people. And for sure, I'm never gonna let down my son. I mean, I'm sure I will, but, like, not intentionally. And then if I do, then we'll be able to sit through and talk it out, And I feel like a lot of my friends have that with their older kids, and then their kid just grows further apart. Because these years that you and I have right now are the most important, because we get to be with our kids as much as we want, and it's absolutely a blessing. A lot of my buddies were 20 years old with their kids. I waited until I was 38 to have a kid, so I guess it was just different for me. But 20-year-olds still getting drunk and going out and just like, here, I'll get a babysitter, I'll get a nanny, I'll get anyone else besides me to take care of this kid,
Yeah.
That's all from, we're disconnected from the family ties. It's like, the old verbiage was what, takes a tribe to raise a kid. And now it's like, mom needs to work, dad needs to work. Put your kids in daycare. Let the system take care of them. Let the system raise them in the school systems through daycares, through schools. And it's like, then when do I get to raise them? And it's
right.
The huge section. But people think that's okay. They think it's cool to be like, oh, yeah, I get my kids on the weekends because they're in school all week, or daycare. Or I'm like, dude, that's horrible. Your kid doesn't have a relationship with you then. Your kid has a relationship with the – it's sad.
I think a lot of guys. Well, two things. Somebody commented about being a single father and struggling with mental health, and I don't want to let that go by. So if they're still on, if you know that you're struggling with mental health, then you should seek a mental health professional. Just like if you felt like you were struggling with your health. Neither one of us, I don't know if you're qualified, but maybe, but I'm not. I'm going to say that I'm not qualified to help you with your mental health. I even the guys that I work with, that I coach, if somebody's struggling with an actual mental health issue, then you should probably see a professional, because like if I was having heart trouble, if I was having physical health issues, I would go see a doctor. I wouldn't ask somebody who has a heart to help me. And I'm not saying that you can't get help from coaches like myself, or from coaches like us, where we can help you in that regard going forward. But I think if you feel as if you have a mental health issue, then you should seek mental health professionals to help you with that issue, because it's not something light to be kind of taken. It's your head, right? Like, it connects to everything else. So if you feel like that's the case, then you should actively pursue something or someone that is qualified to do that. The same thing I would say if you were struggling to lose weight. I wouldn't say just walk into the gym and talk to people who are working out. You should probably seek somebody who has some expertise in that to actually help you fix that problem, or really guide you, because ultimately they're just going to give you tools, right? And they're going to help you solve the problem, not solve the problem for you. But you got to be ready for that. Second thing, I think a lot of guys are in relationship with their kids in the same way they're in relationship with the people at their job, right? They go to work. I know Tim from the job. Me and Tim work together. He's in the cubicle next to me. Sometimes we send emails to each other. We laugh and we joke, but we leave work and I don't talk to Tim anymore. I don't know.
Yeah.
I really don't know anything about Tim. I know Tim's married, but I don't know his wife's name. I don't know his kids' names. Like, we don't have real interaction with them. We're just in the same place at the same time consistently, right? And that's what like showing up in your house is. That's just the first part. Yeah, you got to show up at work, right? Just like you need to show up at home, but there's something beyond just showing up, right? Like getting to know the intimate details. Like me and my girls, when I get to pick them up from school, we have a full conversation, and I had to make that intentional, because if you ask them how was school today, they're going to give you the normal answer. They're going to say it was good. Right? And I'm like, yo, what does that mean? Right? What did somebody like, what was the funniest thing you heard today? What was like the thing that challenged you? Was there something that you guys did in math? Like, let's have a deep conversation. And now they're like talking about friends and their friends, brothers, and shit. Like, I know everybody, right? Like, I know all the intricate details. Like, we have a real relationship because I know the things that they know the things that I'm interested in. I'm showing interest in the things that they're interested in. So they feel like they want to tell me. They can't wait to get in the car and be like, oh my God, Dad, guess what? Remember so-and-so said so-and-so? I'm like, yeah, that's crazy. I can't believe that. What? Oh man, and we have like a real relationship. It's not like we just work in the house together, right? And we actually are really, really friends, but they're my kids. I'm using friends just as a reference for what I'm talking about. But like, we have to have those type of depth conversations, those kind of in-depth relationships with the people that are in our house, so that if we're leaders, we can lead them effectively. Because if we don't know how to lead them. We don't know how to communicate with them. We don't know how to get them on board with the vision, right? We're just saying stuff and it's hopefully going in one ear and sticking, but it's probably coming out the other side, right? And so we have to take that relationship, and I'm glad that you got a whole chapter about being intentional in relationships, because you could probably go back and flesh that out and make a whole book out of it, because I don't think we're intentional enough in our relationships. I think we just take our relationships for granted. When you say I'm your father, we know I'm gonna be your father forever, and so it's oh, we'll be better when he grows up, right? And we hear that a lot. I hear that a lot with dads who have young children. Like, it's too young. I'm not really a good dad to a 2-year-old. I'm like, I don't even know what that means, sir. Like, I don't.
Right.
You better figure it out. Like, you better figure out how to be a good dad to. Well, when he's older and he can talk and we can play and we'll go fishing and yeah, that's a great time. Those are going to be really, really, really valuable times. But if you don't figure it out now, you may not make it to going fishing, right? Because if you're
Yeah.
not influential and impactful in those first 5 to 7 years, he's not going to want to go with you nowhere.
No.
Like, he's going to find other people that he values more than you. And so you have to try to figure out how to be, along the way, the best in those relationships, because they grow and they change. And if you're not involved when they grow and they change, that's where people just separate, right? We said we grew apart and we didn't grow together. Well, because I had a life and you had a life and our lives crossed paths, but they never were intertwined. And we have to think of our relationships with our kids that way, just like we think about our relationships with our wives or our significant other. It's got to be the same thing. We can't just be strangers passing in the night.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with that. It's tough. I know we're coming up on the hour here, so people, a lot of people are still coming in. Never mind. But nonverbal communication is a real thing. I talk about a little bit in the book too. I was intentional with the book. I made it under 50 pages. I wanted it under 50 pages. So the reason is because there's so many guys that are lazy and they don't want to read.
Mm-hmm.
And if I could tell you, my book's under 50 pages, and it's just going to give you tools to think about, just things to think about. Just think about being intentional. Think about what nonverbal communication means, because like that 2-year-old you're talking about, I've heard the same thing with babies, and guys are like, oh, I have nothing in common. That kid knows nonverbal communication. Amazing. You ever see an 18-month-old with being able to do more and all of these things, and they're hungry. It's just like these kids can learn sign language before they're able to speak. So everything's nonverbal. If you're a good father, you should start by learning a little bit what nonverbal communication is about. And yeah, it's amazing that men aren't. I think there's a lot like us that are stepping up, and you're seeing it. But maybe I'm seeing it because that's what I'm starting to focus on, right? And when you put your focus somewhere, it kind of shows up everywhere. And but there's definitely a lot of great men out there that are stepping up, but a lot need work for us to change this world. Because to me, it's like, why am I putting all this work in? It's like, why do I want 3 more kids in my 40s. I know my wife's young, but I want 3 more kids because I'm like, it's not about me right now. I'm 42 years old in a couple weeks here. And it's like, it's about that next generation. It's really setting everything up for the next generation. And the way the world's going right now, they're just trying to destroy and separate us as far as we can. But if we start showing people like, no, that's not how it works, man. We can all still be really tight. We can still be a tribe together, and build a community, as you were saying. That was a huge thing that my wife and I both were all about, is community. We actually moved to Costa Rica for a community, and it didn't work out the way it planned, and that's why we ended up back in Atlanta, now in Florida, and now we're full-time RVers. But it's the community part's a huge part, and I think like eventually, like when we settle down and probably do some homesteading or something like that, we're gonna be looking for those people that have the same mindset, and
yeah.
And it's just like if you're coaching someone, it's nicer to have someone that's like already motivated. When someone reaches out to me, it's like they already have some kind of motivation. They're pushing themselves already, but it's just like they need just one more oomph. And those are the people we want. We don't want the people that, like, I'm not trying to change the person who's totally opposite of me to become me. I want someone who's already pushing themselves a little bit. I see we're getting some questions. And that other guy said something up top too.
Yeah, I think he said that he was talking about his situation, being stressful and being a single father. It's my brother is a single father. He's he's a single father of one completely, and then he's got split custody with his ex on the other kids, and a single father life, bro. It's not for the faint of heart. It definitely takes a really strong individual to be a single parent at all. But a single father especially, and he's got a daughter, so it's even tougher. Because there's some things that, as men, we just don't know about women. We only know about adult women. We really don't know about girls, that you have to teach and nurture and guide and all those things. But I think, one, if you're on here and you're watching a live where guys are talking about fatherhood, you're on the right track, right? You're already thinking the right way. You're already committing yourself to be a better father and a better man. That doesn't come without its own struggles, right? It doesn't come without its own obstacles, and those are going to be there. But if your goal is to be the better man, better father, one, you're going to have to start focusing on you, right? Making sure that you're the best you can be. And if that's a mental health thing, then that's a mental health thing. If that's getting coaching, then that's getting coaching. If that's listening to podcasts and watching videos and whatever it is, right? And then the outside noise of people thinking that moms are better parents than dads, I don't think it's a competition. I think your kids are blessed that they have 2 people who love them. I think they're blessed that they have 1 person that loves them. I think just whoever is there or present is going to have to be the one to kind of cover all the bases, unfortunately. But then you just like I tell, and what's funny, and when I first got into this fatherhood thing, I got a lot of single mom, not clients because I didn't take them on, but a lot of conversations, like a lot, of just, what do I do? How do I do that? Like, how do I parent? Mostly because they have sons. And my thing is, the thing that I tell them is you don't have to do it alone, and you probably shouldn't. Wearing single parenthood as a badge, and I talked to my brother about this, wearing it as a badge is almost a detriment at times because you don't allow your child to get a full experience of parenthood. So finding other resources, reaching out, finding programs in the community that can nurture that child along with you, that align with your goals and things that you want that you want for them, is really important. Even in a 2-parent household, like, my kids play sports and they act and they do a bunch of stuff, but I'm always vetting the people that they do stuff with because I want whoever they're going to learn piano from to have some of the same values and beliefs. And, not that I'm trying to make them only really like one thing, but I don't want to send you for an hour with somebody who's going to be telling you something crazy. You know what I mean? And so as we branch out and we start to do these things, it's important that we find people that align with our vision, but it's okay to, as a single parent, allow for other people to help parent in some regard. Like I said something like this the other day, and I don't know if I posted it yet, but it was a video talking about uh, like a coach, like if you have a good dad, like your coach, if you have a good coach, he's like a assistant dad, because he's teaching you some of those same values. Like some of my football coaches, right? Like I would never call them necessarily father figures because to me they were just my coaches, but they did say some of the same things my dad was saying. They did do some of the same things that my father would have done. You know what I mean? And so it's okay to have some of
Yeah.
those resources in your life to support you and your parenting. Otherwise, it's the lonely world, man. It's hard to do this thing on your own. And so that's why I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're listening. I'm glad you're reaching out and you're asking questions, because a lot of us have those same questions. We're just afraid to ask.
And I'd like to say, Rod and I aren't perfect. Far
No,
from it. We're still
no.
learning ourselves. And I think that's why this conversation is happening. It's because we still are learning so much. And part of it is when you have these conversations, it's accountability. My wife, or in the military, I should say, it's like you always have an accountability partner. Hey, where's your battle buddy? Where's your battle buddy? And at home, the same thing. My wife's my battle buddy. She's my accountability partner. She has to hold me accountable because am I going to slip? 100%. 100%. So, and one other thing I want to touch on that you just said is morals and values. A lot of families have just lost setting morals and values. What do you stand for? Like, what's your stand for? What's your morals and values? It's we talk about this all the time in my house, and it's just like, what is it? And it's funny because I've gone around. We started talking about this about 2 months ago, my wife and I, and now I'll just go around and I'll ask other buddies of mine. I'm like, dude, what's your family's morals and values? And when I said it the first time, I came home. My wife's like, we've never said what ours are. I'm like, but don't we kind of like already just know what they are? And then we sat and we talked, and literally we said the exact same thing. So unintentionally we already had it, but now it's like we thought about it and we actually know what our morals and values were. So it was triggered then, and now it's like I just feel like a lot of families just don't have them. It's a dog world, and they're just grinding it out. And I feel like that's where we need to stop and slow down and reassess the situation, recenter, realign, and attack a different angle.
Yeah.
I know it's very.
Yeah. I'm gonna take you up on that challenge. We're gonna get together and we're gonna write out a mission statement or some morals and value. I know what I think, but I'm really curious. Me and my wife are usually on the same page, but I'm really curious as to what she's gonna put down, and then I want to work with my kids on doing that as well. Because again, leader, right? Like when you're leading men in the military, they have an idea of what the mission goal is, right? Like they've been given some debriefing on what's going to happen, right? And so that allows them to move in a way that they're supposed to. Now, if you just say, "Hey guys, at 0600, follow me," like, what? Like, what you mean? Like, follow you to where? What do I need to bring? Do I need to, what I mean? What, I need some ideas of what's going to happen here. I just show up in my gym shorts and like, what's the idea? And if we aren't doing that with our families, then I think we're setting them up to disappoint themselves and disappoint us at some point.
100%, man. I'm with you. Rod, I think we need to summarize this thing, or not summarize, just end it, huh?
Yeah. My kids they're somewhere. So I gave them time on the iPad. They don't get a whole lot of time on the iPad. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna go do this thing. You guys can get on the iPad. So they're not gonna bother me. They're gonna be completely quiet for as long as possible. But I know they need to eat lunch at some point. So I need to kick the door in and see what they're watching. And make sure that they aren't on YouTube Shorts or something crazy.
Well, let's connect again in the future. I'm going to Portugal here in a couple of weeks here, and we got some big plans. But July, August, maybe I'll hit you up again. Well, I'm gonna message you for that morals and values. I'm gonna hold you accountable for that. See where you're at.
You know what? I'm gonna post them. I'll post it. If you don't see it posted, definitely anybody that's listening, anybody's watching, pull my coattails. Because look, here's, you mentioned accountability partners, and your significant other, the person that lives in your house, all the people actually that live in your house are accountability partners, and they should hold you accountable for what you said you're going to do. Because we talk about integrity, right? And that's one of our core values in the household. I know that for sure. But doing what you say when you're going to say it, like, sorry, doing what you said, right, it's super important. And I just said it, like, and I'm not going to back up on it. I'm going to make sure I get it done. I got some time tonight, and we'll start working on it tonight. I'm going to surprise my wife with it. But yeah, man, I'll post it. I'll put it up here so that people can see it, and hopefully inspire some people to do the same. I saw somebody said they were going to do it. And this is awesome. Like, I like when we put challenges like that out I do it in my coaches groups too. I just might drop something in there. Like, hey man, tell 10 people today, right? I don't care who they are. Or like, hey, reach out to an old friend, tell them that you haven't talked to in a few months, and just talk about old times. Like, stuff like that we just don't do because it's uncomfortable and it's weird, but I think that's really important. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to be in Asia for a couple of weeks, coming at the end of so next week I'm going to be in the Bay Area, and then after that I'll be in Asia until like July 12th. So I don't know how much I'm going to be on social media. I don't know what the rules are exactly out there for Instagram, and apps are different out there. So I don't know what's going to happen. So if you don't, so that's my excuse, right? So now I actually got to move faster, because otherwise I'm going to use that as an excuse for why I didn't do it. But yeah, man, I'd love to connect, and I got to get you on the podcast so we can talk even more about you and your journey and fatherhood and what you got going on, and talk about the book and all that stuff. So I'm glad that we were able to connect. I know we did a couple of different things and we kind of missed each other and played a little tag, but now you tagged me, so I got to tag you back. You're it. So let's connect, and I got to talk to you about Costa Rica. Me and my wife have been talking about taking a trip out there, so I got to talk to you about that. 'Cause we travel a lot, so I also got to pick your brain about Portugal. So I never thought about Portugal, but I got to know what's going on there too. So,
man, hey, have a great day. Enjoy the family.
Will do. You as well. Hey, have fun at the concert. Let me know how chill it was, or how not chill it was.
It's gonna be great. We've only had 2 dates in 3 years, so I know it's gonna be wonderful.
Man. Okay, before we go, and this is for everybody, but you too, as you're going on this date tonight, I want you to start thinking about something and call it like the rule of 7. Okay, so every 7 days, because your kid is young, you got to figure out how you do this, because you're mobile or whatever. But figure out how you set up support system. Every 7 days, you want to take your wife on a date. Could be a lunch date. You guys just go grab a coffee. It doesn't have to be anything big. It doesn't have to be a concert, but just you and her for like 30, 40 minutes, maybe an hour, just talking. Right? Not at home. It has to be outside the house. And then as they get old, as your kid gets older and you guys start to do things, so every 7 days you want to have a date. Every 7 weeks you want to take like a night away, just one night. Don't go crazy, just one night. Just go stay the night at a hotel or something, you guys just together, where you don't have to worry about coming home early, or putting the baby to bed or any of that stuff. You guys just go out and spend time. And then every 7 months, if it's possible, and again, you guys negotiate, these don't have to be hard 7s, right? But every 7 months you guys go and take a more than 1 day trip, maybe 2-3 days, something like that, right? Where you guys go to Vegas or for the weekend or whatever, something like that, right? Because I think one of the things we miss when we talk about fatherhood and we talk about manhood is that relationship with our wife, and how important that is for our child to see, how important that is. Because I talk to a lot of dudes that are struggling through divorces, and if 50% of marriages are ending in divorce, and we're not nurturing that relationship as well as our relationship with our children, then we're setting ourselves up for failure and later heartbreak and struggle and stress that we don't have to have. So just 7, 7, 7, 7.
All right, I'm gonna take that challenge on. Appreciate it, Rod. 7s, man. I have nothing to add on that. You're right. Everything is 100% right there.
All right, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, take it easy.